My name is Christopher Cascio. I was born in New Orleans and I live in Houston. So when people ask me, why do I make art, or how did I start making art? The best answer is kind of a non-answer, which is that there was no decision. It just always was there, right? So when I was a kid, this is before cell phones and tablets, and as long as I had a piece of paper and a pen, like I could sit there for an hour, 90 minutes and just draw, and I was perfectly happy, right? So that never stopped. It's really not a like, how do I get out of bed and make myself go to work? It's how do I do the other stuff in my life that I need to do? Because the drive is there. I tell my students that if they have that, I call it the affliction, which is, you know, kind of in a joking way, but being an artist is not a particularly easy life to make a living at, and a real sign that you might be successful is that you can't turn it off and you have to make it. And even if you're working 40 or 50 hours a week at a day job, if you still find time for that studio practice, you know, over time, you're going to be kind of one of the people left still making art. So it's just like, I'm one of those people that always knew exactly what I was going to do if I could get away with it. The benefits of being an artist and making art, to me, outweigh the struggles that come with it, if that makes sense. For 30 years, I've been painting with brushes in a traditional way, and more recently have branched out into using masking tape and aerosol paint to achieve a more hard edge look for my paintings. Recently, that has shifted to a practice where I'm sewing fabric, but still maintaining the kind of geometric, painterly look to them. For the past, I would say 10 years, I've been working on paintings that relate back to quilting practice, right? I was really blown away. It was like a kind of like seismic shift in the way I thought about art when the MFA had that G's Ben show. And from that point on, kind of in the back of my mind, I was not really researching, but definitely like interested in quilting, going to the quilt show in Houston, looking at Amish quilt makers. I'm also really into art that uses materials that kind of like a reuse of materials, so that the work has this kind of lived history within the materials. I'm what I have dubbed a functional hoarder, meaning I don't collect actual garbage, but I do collect things that, for whatever reason in my artist mind, feel important. So I was really interested in kind of using my own, like detritus of my life. A lot of times it relates back to something that I habitually use. And since wristbands have, like, usually they're related to a specific event, and they are worn kind of like clothing, I started to collect wristbands from events that I would go to, and then later friends would save them for me, and then after that I would kind of walk around the neighborhood of the studio where there's lots of clubs and stuff and collect them there. So I started to make paintings by affixing those to the canvas in these kind of geometric patterns, as if they were strips of fabric. I, at some point, as the pandemic, bought a sewing machine and started sewing together my old paintings that I had like taken off the stretcher. And that was somewhat successful, but I went to my bag of t-shirt rags, which had paint on them, and started to sew with those. And it really took off from there. And then for a year, all of 2023, I only sewed t-shirts, some other fabrics, and made the work that way. So I was kind of like making paintings about quilting and then making quilts about painting, and it all just kind of worked out that way. For a while, I've been exploring the kind of archetype of a portal or a doorway. And then out of that also sprung staircases. And a lot of times it's a staircase going in or up through a portal or behind it. And that actually came from making the quilt pattern paintings. They kind of started off kind of as crude frames, which then had smaller and smaller bars of color, which made a kind of implied staircase. So as the portals kind of materialized out of just right angles and straight lines, I started to think about them in a more literal way. And then from there, I'm getting very interested in kind of like natural portals. So caves, like places where humans go in through, and more of like an archaic idea of that, right? So that's kind of where I'm at now, like investigating more kind of like mixing that with the more architectural and just like seeing what happens, playing around. Sometimes it's successful and sometimes it's not, but it's definitely fun to kind of like change a couple things, keep a couple things the same and change a couple things and like see what happens, you know what I mean? Keeps it interesting. But then when it hits, like I said, it's a different kind of satisfaction